Hi, I'm Sarah Hodges, and this is Executives Uncut, the podcast where we provide solutions for the corporate cycle of hell. You all know what that feels like. Today, we're talking about blurred vision, and I'm here again with Fergus Connolly, performance coach, author, TED Talk speaker, all around great guy. Hey, Fergus, it's our Concept of Chaos series.
You're too kind, Sarah. Too kind. Start blushing.
No, I'm going off script. I'm telling you how I really feel.
Thank
So
you.
Fergus, so we've all felt blurred vision, right? I mean, we've experienced a lot of blurred vision with our clients because a lot of times they come to us looking for clarity because they have a lot of, confusion, absence of clarity, conflicting perspectives of what their vision might be, or they might be like, what's a vision? So what is a vision? How would you define it?
Well, the vision is the actual thing, that the direction you're going in, and it is really interesting. When I've been with different groups and you talk to different people and you ask people what the vision is, it's really interesting when you come to organizations and everybody has a slightly different vision or thinks that the vision is something a little bit different. I think I was telling you about a national organization I was with, and I remember at the end we were talking. I said, "Hey, by the way, what is your goal or your vision now?" There were 8 people in the room, all very senior, and everybody actually had a different. It actually ended in an argument because everybody had a different
Oh,
description or explanation of what the vision was of the organization, and it was fascinating, but it was very illustrative of the confusion that you can have in organizations when there is not a clear vision or a clear direction for everybody that they can contribute in.
yeah, and I think I see this a lot too in actually just marketing and sales with the financial advisors that I work with, or the VCs or the startups who are doing capital raising. It's really difficult to tell your investor or your prospect, hey, you shouldn't, invest in my company because, right? They need to know your vision, they need to know why, they need to know like what are the long-term implications, what are the values of your company. And I think you know, with kind of a rise in social responsibility, especially with millennials and Gen Z, vision is all that much more important.
Very, very much so. The whole contribution of social responsibility, knowing what that is, being able to explain it, particularly now, is more and more important. I often say that culture coaches when you're not around, but vision makes decisions when you're not around as well. Because you can't
Mm.
micromanage everybody, and the vision is something that directs and should direct all of the decision making, from a macro to a micro, so that people know, understand, and feel like they can contribute. Um, and there's a brilliant story told about John F. Kennedy visiting Houston, preparing for the whole operation to put a man on the moon. He asks, when he visits, where the restroom is. Somebody points him in the direction. He goes down a corridor and he bumps into a janitor. And he asks the janitor where the restroom is. And he tells him where it is. And he said, "Oh, what do you do here?" And the janitor's reply is, "I help put a man on the moon." And that's an example of a vision
Wow.
that everybody can feel part.
And I think we just lost Fergus. But that is okay because I have chills. I lost you for a second, Fergus, but I have chills. Wait, you just said that we can be part of, and then you froze. But like I totally agree with you. Like that is an amazing story of that no matter how minute your job is, if you are part of a corporation or an organization that has a vision that you really align with, you feel that sense of impact as well. And that's a huge benefit because it gets your entire staff on board, no matter how small. Not that a janitor's job is small because that's a very important job, but no matter how, no matter what the role is, I should say.
Exactly,
So
and nobody feels disenfranchised or doesn't feel part of, because we all need to feel necessary, and particularly for our organizations, that we're all contributing towards those, and that's why it's so important and dictates everything that we do.
yes, absolutely. And I think this is also really important when it comes down to succession plans, because I've seen this a lot in RIAs, in financial firms that have been, you know, where the son or daughter is coming in and they're kind of inheriting the firm. And at some point they've lost the vision. They've lost the reason why it was started in the first place. They just kind of do it because it's all they've ever known. I think the same thing when startups or any organization gets a new CEO, or if somebody retires out and they just a new management takes over the organization, that vision that drove the company for such a long time kind of retires with the original leader. And then you see the company get pretty lost. They make decisions that don't align with the vision anymore. So let's talk a little bit about decision making and vision. Like, how do you know? Let's start here. How do you know that you don't have a vision? Like, what are some good indicators? What do you think?
Yeah, that point about succession is incredibly important. And you would be amazed, even working with special operations groups, I've had this conversation about the danger of simply inheriting something or actually contributing and being part of. And it's something that needs to be refreshed with people time and time again, because there is a danger, like you say, that a vision is just simply inherited as a catchphrase, that it's not truly contributed to, and people don't feel part of and actually don't have ownership of it. That's the important thing, because when people have responsibility for it, ownership, contribute towards it, now they feel part of. And again, like I say, they make their decisions based off that. It helps direct that clarity. And the biggest pitfalls are not having clarity around what the vision is, and that helps direct everything. And it means as well that subgroups and sub-departments also have their vision that is aligned with that overall vision. It's why you're excited to get to work in the morning. It's why you bound up the steps. That's what the vision actually is.
Yeah, so you're kind of talking about macro and micro visions, and micro visions that align with the macro vision. So, considering that this is Executives Uncut, right? And this is geared toward executives, how can the leader, the ultimate leader of the company, help clarify or create or reestablish a vision within their organization?
Correct, and it needs to be revisited or at least maintained. And when I worked at San Francisco 49ers, we used to have the story of Bill Walsh. Every year, the very first talk to the team was the same talk, which started with reestablishing what the vision was, what the goals were, and filtering back from that. Every single talk, the first day, was pretty much the same one, but the reason was to reestablish the vision. And it also reestablishes the key ground rules, the key fundamental ground rules that we're going to use moving forward.
That's awesome. So he just revisited it every single year as a rule, just kind of keep coming back to it. And so what I'm hearing you say is that, like, one of the things that you recommend is that executives really make that time in staff meetings and emails to the organization to expound upon their vision, right? And help their organization understand the different ways to integrate it as we navigate through a changing world.
Absolutely. And give your staff the opportunity to speak as well, because that's when you will find out if they truly understand it, and the words that that they use, do they truly understand what it is that you're saying, and are people aligned? And the other thing that's really important is as well, when you do it with your staff, everybody else in the room knows that their colleagues also understand the vision. That's very, very important.
Yes. Well, but I think there's a lot of executives who would come to us and say, "Well, but I have a vision statement." Most companies have vision
Yes.
statements
Yeah.
as part of, like, their mission statement, their vision statement. How is it different? Like, what are we saying that's different from just your everyday average vision statement?
Well, the vision statement, like I say, sometimes it's just memorized, it's rote, it's a statement that people just run off. Sometimes it's quite long, but
Hmm.
the vision is usually just one line about saying this is what we aspire to be in a global sense, and that's what we're directing towards. But again, it's something that has to be revisited, and if it needs to be changed, it needs to be changed each year slightly. But generally, it's not going to be. But you need to have that conversation and just reaffirm it with your staff regularly, and most importantly during times of change, because the vision itself is what's going to determine how you respond to change, how, like I said, how people make decisions.
So then how do you think a vision is different from a goal? What do you think?
So goals are the actual specifics, and so the way that I break it down is you have your overall vision that's going to be there and that people are going to contribute. Underneath that, then you have an aim, and then you've got subsequent objectives, and the objectives are the things that we're going to do in the short term to reach that goal. And that's how I do it with groups and with teams. Is okay, this is what the vision is. Everybody can feel part of it. Now underneath that, different departments, different groups may have aims and objectives that are slightly different,
Hmm.
specific to them, but the vision itself is global. Everybody feels part of and contributes towards that vision, that aspirational vision.
Yeah, and do you think that a vision, at least I get this sense that a vision is more elusive, where goals are a little bit more concrete? Vision is more about like the essence of something, where goals are achievable. I think you just froze in mid drinking. There you go, you're back.
No. I could do. That's exactly it. Like goals are achievable, they're specific, and objectives again then are far more specific and detailed.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So, you know, in terms of vision, with companies who are already let's say they're doing everything right, right? They're doing everything right. They have a vision. They keep revisiting it, and yet, just kind of like the national organization that you walked into, everybody has a different definition of it. Like, how does that happen?
Well, in a case like that, there's confusion over people are simply, um, rowing their own boat, but it's not in a unified, cohesive direction. And that can happen, but in organizations that are well managed and that are being led well, that's not going to happen really, because what you're going to find is you're going to hear people describe what they're doing that doesn't align with the actual goals and vision of the organization.
Yeah, and I think that for a lot of organizations, when you talk about it won't happen in organizations that are led well, a lot of this is about walking the talk. If you have a vision, if you have values for your company, as an executive, it's making sure that you're setting the example, that you yourself are embodying that vision, not just believing in it, but the way that you interact with each other, the way you interact with stakeholders, completely embodying the whatever vision it is that you have for your organization. And so, speaking of which, let's talk a little bit about, you know, um, what a vision is. Like, what are some of the important components? And I think that an easy way to think about it is this is how our values as an organization, and list what your values are, will help us make a long-term impact. So it's about making an impact. It's about thinking long-term, way into the future, and how do your values as a company contribute to that long-term impact. And then you have a playbook, right, of how the rest of your organization is behaving, how the rest of them interact with each other. So, Fergus, what might that look like for you? Like, what are some values that you see commonly brought in, or some long-term visions?
Yeah, the values are going to be determined by, again, the organization and the group, and the language is particularly important. But, you know, generally at the core, you'll find honesty, integrity, because to your point, that has to be a key cornerstone, particularly of leaders, because that is needed to help walk the walk, as you said. I use this phrase, the 3-year rule, because if you don't have a clear vision, if you don't have those reaffirmed on an annual basis, and you don't have that authenticity or that honesty, By the third year, the company or the organization will start to disintegrate. You'll start to see it by the third year, because you can get away with 1 year, 2 years, but by the third year, you'll see that fracturing because you don't have a clear vision. You don't have people walking the walk. You don't have that authenticity. And I always go back, you'll see it of organizations, particularly, like I say, in the third year. That's only a guideline, but it's a very good warning into the future.
Yeah, that's a really great specific. And I think that a vision too is like a compass, so when we get lost in the brush and all of the, the chaos and the adversity that any company is going to face, because we are humans, right? And nothing goes perfectly. That vision really helps you. It's like a checks and balances for your decision making, and a compass that can redirect you. You can say, okay, am I going in the right direction? But then that requires you as a leader to go back to that vision in times of adversity, and not just it's like not just putting the fire out, but making sure that your company has an adequate fire plan, right? Like that you have your fire extinguishers everywhere. That's what a vision is in comparison to
exactly. Yeah, and in military we talk about fog and frictions of war. Like, frictions are the things that happen on a daily basis that disrupt us, and then the fog is the confusion. Well, that's what your vision is there for. That's your overall vision, your direction. Like you said, it's a compass that keeps you moving in the right direction as you overcome those things. Mm-hmm. So while things are going on, there's smoke and confusion, you have a clear vision. And also, really important, when things become chaotic, I know that my colleagues, I know that the other departments, I know that people involved, we all have that shared unified vision. So it takes stress off me. I don't have to worry about people unnecessarily, or worry that they don't understand what our shared vision is.
So it gives you like automatic think sync. So when you are sitting at the table trying to make a plan, trying to problem solve with your team, everyone is already mentally aligned to make whatever it is you want to get done, don't you think? And then taking on those micro visions for their departments.
Correct. And, we'll talk about this in another episode, though, about, empowering and micromanaging. You don't want to tell people what to do, but that they've got the vision that's established. So now they can make their own decisions. And that's why it's so key and so supportive, again, of the decision making that people are going to make for you and with you.
Yeah. And I think that something that's really important, that honestly will come to time and time again in these podcasts, is asking instead of telling. If your vision is clear and if your values are clear, then you can trust that your employees are going to want to work for it. They're going to be like the janitor, at NASA, who said he's going to put a man on the moon. They're going to find value in what it is that they're doing. So, it's okay. It's safe to ask them. I asked Justin, our intern, a million times, how would you make this better? What would you improve upon this? What do you think is reasonable for you and manageable for you? You can let them take ownership of their projects because they understand the ultimate company vision. You're giving each of them their own compass by having a company vision. And then you are creating a staff of self-leaders instead of a staff of, quite frankly, blind followers who you have to babysit all the time. So it really empowers you, it empowers your staff, and it allows you to give them the keys to leadership. So, Fergus, anything else that you want to say before we get into quick tips?
Two quick things. One, on that point, when you share the vision, like you said, and people feel part of it, what you will find is, in good organizations, because people understand truly what the vision is, they will come with suggestions, things that you would not have thought of yourself. That's really empowering. The other thing, you touched on it as well, about listening. Soccer teams in Europe that I've worked with, we could have 4 or 5 different languages, people from all over the world, but you have to listen to the language they use to truly understand, to ensure that they understand what the vision is. But even in English, even in the US, you've got different companies, different people have different backgrounds, different generations. You need to listen to them speak about and talk about your vision, and so that you understand how they describe it and how you describe it, so that everybody is aligned. So listening and not creating lemmings, creating people who are going to be their own decision makers is very, very important. That's why the vision is so valuable.
Yes, that's awesome. And that leads us right into our tips, actually. So, our tip for you this week is to go back to your vision, and ask, is it clearly defined? What are the keywords? So what are the values and how are you going to make that long-term impact? And get everyone else on board. Ensure that they know that they're contributing to it, to, any iteration that you're making on your vision statement, and that everyone feels part of the process. And in terms of our coaching challenge, go ahead and ask everyone in your organization what they think the company vision is. You might get a lot of really interesting answers. And quite frankly, some of those answers can actually help you define your vision. It can work backward, right? Which is really cool. Anything else, Fergus?
No, I think that would be a really interesting experiment for a lot of people, is just casually over coffee, just talking, hey, what's the company vision? What do you think the company vision is? And just do that with a few people and just note the responses that you get, and understand and listen to the language that they use, because you might want to change, the language to suit, again, the generational change or the people that you have. But it'll be a very interesting conversation, just asking, what do we do here? What's the vision?
Yeah. All right. That's all we have for today. Thanks, Fergus. And thanks everyone else for tuning in to this episode of Executives Uncut. So if you enjoyed our content, another reminder, make sure to subscribe and share with someone who could benefit from this talk. And visit hodgescoaching.com for new episodes, or follow us at hodgescoaching.com on social media, where we will be posting all of these tips and coaching challenges for you as well. I'm Sarah Hodges with Fergus Connolly, and I will see you next week.